Gone to Tahiti on vacation. Jungle I found me a tiki man. Well, you can understand annihilation. When the natives, they all shook my hand. Well, the head of the village said destroy it.
How you guys doing?
Well, I'm no fool, I kept it anyway. That's the mistake, I regret it. When I found you, gone to Tahiti on vacation. In the jungle I found me a tiki man. Well, you can understand annihilation. When the natives, they all shook my hand. Well, the head of the village said destroy it. Well, I'm no fool, I
Yo, is anyone out there? My live feed got interrupted. So after it got interrupted, it corrupted, it wouldn't download. So I just came back. I got questions written down that I got from people in my DMs asking me stuff about me. No? Anyone there? Anyone come? Yeah, the first feed got wiped out. Sometimes in the mountains, I'll lose the feed. But thank you guys for coming in. Yo, what's up? Revradchad in the house. Yeah, I was on the live feed earlier and my connection got wiped out. So it pretty much wiped out the whole feed. So I don't know if you were here earlier. If not, no big deal. Just going to read through some of the questions that I get in my DMs all the time because that feed didn't go. So no one's going to be able to see the answers to any of the questions. I get asked all the time, how old am I? I'm like, I just turned 53 this year. So, yeah, old, pretty old. And they're like, where am I from? I was born in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, back in the 70s. Lived in Colorado for 25 years. And I've lived in Arizona for the better part of the last 20 years. With a little visiting other places. Then people say, what do I do? Like, what do I do for work? Well, for the last 30 years, I've been a tattoo artist all across the different states that I've lived in. Yeah. Traditional tattoo artist and taught in Denver back in the mid 90s. And I worked in Denver for like about 8 years before I moved to Phoenix originally. Traveled to a bunch of places to tattoo in my lifetime. Was I always a Christian? No. Well, I mean, I was, but I wasn't. I wasn't a good Christian most of my life. When I actually first thought I was a good Christian, I was probably in my early 20s. And I maybe thought I was a really good Christian for maybe 10 years, 15 years. And My ex-wife died of a drug overdose. And I can't say that I was a very good Christian for like the next 9 to 10 years after that. And in the last 5 to 6 years, I've tried to get my life back to a positive base, back to a full understanding of the grace I was willing to give up on that trail of being lost. So nobody's perfect. I don't preach from any high horse. I don't preach from some kind of benevolent land where I've always been perfect. I'm a human being who's had many struggles, and I tell the truth from the ground level. I'm a regular dude. I've been through crappy shit. I've done bad things. I've been arrested for DUIs when I was young. Used to be in a motorcycle group and go out to the bar and, drink and fight and cause problems. I don't drink anymore. I don't fight anymore. I don't cause any problems anymore. Some of it's just a part of growing up, but some of it's taking responsibility and accountability for who you are and what you want to be. Can't everybody's made mistakes. Everybody's walked a different path than each other. Can't say each other did or didn't do the right thing. The only person that gets to judge us is God. And if you know you've done wrong and you can explain that to God, then he'll understand. That's part of God being benevolent, But you got to come to them first. Hello, how you guys doing? And life is trying for many people. And a lot of people fall down. And it's not about falling down or doing wrong. It's about understanding when you do wrong and understanding when you fall down. And then making the adjustments. If you fall down the same way every single day forever, you have obviously not learned anything. I spent 7 or 8 years, probably closer to 8 or 9 years, falling down with the same excuse all the time. And one day, it just hit me. Someone had asked me how long it had been since the passing, and I went to do the math and realized, oh, wow, I've wasted almost a decade of my life. So you could be with the best of intentions and you can get caught on the wrong path. So nobody's perfect. I definitely, like I said, I preach from no high standing. I don't share God from some level of benevolence where I think that I have some special knowledge over other people, or I have the ability to judge them or gauge what they do or don't do. I do not. I'm a regular man. I walk a regular path. Unfortunately for me, 5 or 6 years ago, I ran into a man who shared the knowledge of God more than I had at the time, and he brought me back to my path. And it is what it is. God came here, Jesus came here, and he gave us his fleshly life for our failed sins, for us to repent and come back to the Father. That's really, the truth of it all. And I could get the book out and I could read some, a couple things related, but I was trying to read them earlier before my feed cut out. I think that someone was pushing the button to shut the feed off. No, I'm just kidding. But like I said, I'm not some above thou person speaking down to other people. I'm at the street level speaking up to everybody, just sharing the truth of what I've learned. I lived both sides of it. I lived a troublemaker, thug, criminal-ish life. I got in a lot of trouble as a kid, as a youth, in my early 20s. And it wasn't until like my 30s when I finally realized I didn't want to have a life like that. And when you live a life that long with that kind of path, it's really hard to understand that you can change it or you could come different from it. A lot of people fake preach when they think they find God, and they spit it out. They read verses and they spit them out against people as words or armor to attack them and their individuality. And it's not meant to do that. The word is the word exactly as it is. You're supposed to live in the word, reading it as it is, not interpreting it, not putting your feelings into it. It is what's written. It is what is said. So a lot of people out there putting their opinion on it and swaying it to the way it works for them the best. But we're all human. We all come from the same thing, and the sooner we realize that, the sooner we can get, what's up? How you doing? What's up, Nate? It's it's the truth. Let's see. So, what other questions did they have down here for me? Oh yeah, I get this one all the time because my moniker is Revradchad, which I am an ordained minister. I have been for well over 20 years. Like I said, you can fall off the path and it doesn't change who you are. Yep, it's nice to relax after a long, hard day. And so the question I've been asked a bunch of times in the DM, and it's, do I believe in the Second Amendment? And I'll say 100% yes, I do. I 100% believe in the Second Amendment. There's nowhere in God's writing that it says allow people to harm you or to harm your people. He actually tells in several different instances to stand up and protect people, especially to protect the people that can't protect themselves. So the Second Amendment is absolutely necessary for this country. And you're going to see here shortly, there's going to come a time when we're going to have to defend this land from inside this land that we never thought we would, because it's definitely under attack, and it's a spiritual attack. And that's where it's going to start. It always starts spiritually. They'll attack you spiritually, and then once they've attacked you spiritually, they'll attack you physically. That's the way it is. But if you have a strong faith, no weapon raised against you will prosper. So, yeah, there's that. Let me check this out. Play some music from my friends at Deadbolt, because I'm real good friends with them. So they're my official background. They're my official background jams.
You're ever gonna leave it alone?
The attack's already within.
Soon I discovered my special.
It's just a matter of when and if people are actually going to do anything, or what exactly is going to be the straw that breaks the initiative. Like what's actually going to have to happen? How much hurt is there actually going to have to be? How much damage? How much suffering? And that's the great question for humanity. What are you willing to take? How much will you tolerate? I think there's a lot of people that have tolerated about the bulk of what they really want to tolerate. And I think there's a lot of people a bulk of people, the majority of the people in this country want this country to stay this country. It's a little off the God topic, but not really, because God said you are the nation you live in. And the laws that you make of your land, you follow those laws because you follow those laws under God. So yeah, Charlie's actually the person that I was talking about when I found my faith, when I owned my tattoo shop in Virginia, because he was speaking at the college there back in, 2021. And that's when I kind of came back from being a drunken maniac after 10 years of, just drinking myself into oblivion, feeling sorry for myself after my ex-wife died. You know, it happens. I've seen it happen to other people, and I was, oh, that would never happen to me. Nope. When she died, I crumbled into pieces, climbed inside of a bottle of beer, and didn't come out for like a decade. So, but you can change. Anybody can change. Anybody can change anything good or bad about them. I think that's the saddest thing about people is they sit around pretending like they can't change. Oops. They sit around pretending like whatever their problem is out of their reach, is out of their jurisdiction, so to speak. But everything you face, every problem, you know, and I'll say this, and I'll say this a lot, but if you believe in God, then you can believe in God and you can believe in you. But if you only believe in you, then all you got to believe in is you. It seems like there's much more comfort if you could believe in God, because instead of carrying that burden that you carry all day long, He'll carry it for you. It says that in the Bible. He'll carry your hardships. You just bring them to Him. So we're much stronger people, and we're made in His image. So we're not as weak as we think we are. And anybody from any circumstance can come back. I'm proof of that. You know, I'm absolute proof of that. You know, I think, you could change your life and become a better person. And the people that are around you and the people that know you, they'll notice the difference. They'll see it. They'll understand it. You know, I only preach on here. I only talk on here. I don't really use the other platforms. Sometimes I share the stuff from here, but this is the only place I really share with people. The other stuff, the Instagrams and stuff, that's more for my tattoo work and, a little bit of these feeds, but this is where I come. I don't go live anywhere else. I go live here, so. Definitely have some issues and comfort zones I need to change for me to grow. Well, comfort zones, I think, man, that's kind of a catch-22, because comfort zones are like safety nets. They're like whoopee blankets. You really sometimes, to grow the strongest that you could possibly grow, you have to step out of your comfort zones. You have to you really, to be as strong as you possibly can be, you have to do something you'd be absolutely afraid to do. Go someplace you'd be afraid to go. I'm just getting some tea, because got some tea. Some green tea with honey. You have to be willing to go where you're scared. It's like those stunt bike rider guys that are amazing. They didn't get to be amazing the first time. They had to be willing to crash that shit 50 times. That's why they have those padded pits. So, nothing comes easy in life. And so, you have to be willing to put in to win to get something different. But you have to be willing to change in order to become something amazing. In order to become something amazing, you have to be willing to stop being whatever is not amazing. If you want to be the new you, you have to stop being the old you. You have to trade one for the other. If you're not comfortable with the trade, then it won't happen. It's like me. I traded my 1,000 PBRs a month for cups of green tea and iced tea, and even sometimes mint tea. You have to be willing to give up something to get something better. You have to be willing to look inside yourself, take accountability, take that accountability from yourself, Put it in check to what's pertinent to your life. Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? What do you need to change? How is it affecting you? When it comes to your relationship between God, you have to tell him that shit. You have to talk to God however you want, alone in your private space, and you tell him, "Hey God, these are the things that I do flawed. These are the things I want to change. Help me." I acknowledge them. And that's how you get accepted, and that's how change happens. And that's how you get in the grace of God. And that's how you get the protection, by sharing that, by changing, and by getting that energy. Like the comfort zone thing for sure though, man. That's 100%. You have to be willing to step out of it. Yeah, you need, well, before you can stop being angry with the things you can't change, first you have to accept what you can't change. That's the easiest way not to be angry. I found that when I spent most of my youth in anger, and I was very angry, I was in a band that every song we had was about some kind of angry, shitty moment where I wanted to start a fight. So um, you can come out of that. But first, you have to accept what you can't change. Once you accept it, like an overwhelming peace comes over you, because you why would you get mad? You know, and then it takes effort. It takes practice. It takes catching yourself acting crazy and stopping yourself. It takes catching yourself in a moment of anger, being super angry and aggressive, and going, "Well, I'm super angry and aggressive right now." So it takes effort. And you have to acknowledge it. And if you acknowledge it, you could catch yourself and you could prevent yourself from doing it a little each time. I used to be the worst road raging, psychomaniac, angry, speed racing dude. And now I'm able to allow people to just piss me off and drive by. So we have to take accountability. I think that's why a lot of people don't like faith. That's why a lot of people leave the room when I talk about God, because in order to believe in God, you have to take accountability for the things that you do. If you want God's grace, you can't be a full-time sinner all day long, every single day, doing whatever you want. So I think that's what it is. Accountability and truth is hard for a lot of people. And if you can't accept accountability and truth for the things that you're involved in and the things that you do and the decisions you make, then you can't grow. Well, that's about the age that I think everybody really comes to realization of who they have or have not been throughout their life. It's like between 30 and 40 is when you really come to the realization of what direction you may or may not be going, if you haven't already found your direction. But if you're in that age group, you grew up in an age group where those kids we were allowed to be angry. There was a lot of angst in the youth of the 2000s. So, you know, um you just accept it and you acknowledge it. That's step number one. The fact that you can acknowledge it. If you can acknowledge it, you can put your finger on it. You can see it happening. You can figure it out. You can deal with it. And for me, and what I suggest for anybody who has any profound amount of faith, is you talk about that with God. Certain things you need out of your life, when you're driving down the road and you're having your private conversation with God, tell him you need those things out of your life. Hey, God, I don't want to drink anymore. My shoulder hurts from carrying a 12 pack for the last 30 years. I want that weight. I need to put that burden down. I need that weight off of my arm. I need my shoulder to heal because I carried that burden for way too long. And if you're sincere and you're honest and you're willing to put in the effort, God will take that weight away from you, whatever it be. The beer is a metaphor. You know, you say, hey, God, help me with my anger. Help me to be calm. Read the scripture. The scripture says, don't be quick to be angry. Only a fool gets angry. So you could read stuff that will help you understand. You could look to the index in the beginning, and you can look up anger, and you could look up the key phrases that line up with it, and you could read them. I could get the book out and I could read it to you right now. Here, check it out. So we'll read it right now, bro. I'll help you out with it. We'll go through it together right here. I've read these many times myself. So here we go. It says, anger. Anger can lead to murder. Genesis 4:3-8. That's a long one. I'm not going to read that one because that's really long. But anger can lead to murder. Anger leads to evil actions. Psalm 37:8. Let me check that one out. I've already got that one highlighted. There it is. Oh, ow. 37:8. You guys still there? Anybody there? Still there, Nate? $37.8. It says right here. See, 37:8. It says, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. So, literally any like emotion or stressful thing, if you believe and you want to lean on belief, any of those things you could find right here in the verse finder in the front of the Bible, and it help you find anything. Talks about faith, talks about family, foul language, freedom, friendship, future, guilt, hatred. I have a lot of these things highlighted because I'm a sinner. I'm not Revradchad because I'm some benevolent soul. I wasn't graced by God to be a perfect man. I was fouled. I was failed. I was broken. I was broken many ways, many times. I had to get on my knees and come back to God and beg God to forgive me for all the terrible things I did in my lifetime. And not terrible like to some people. Some of it's just stuff, but to God, a lot of it's terrible. Getting drunk and acting a fool, God hates that. It's terrible. To us, it's just, he had too much to drink, having a bunch of girlfriends, way too friggin' many girlfriends before I was even 30 years old. That's not, God I guarantee he didn't approve of that. He didn't approve of that at all. So nobody's perfect. We're all flawed. And it's a matter of coming back from that changes everything. So, and and I think this country's kind of a healing moment. A lot of people are looking for something better. They're looking for a moment of peace. They're looking for tranquility. So they're looking to God. They're at least looking at the possibility of it to try to understand it. And I think that's where it starts. Absolutely, man. That's the only reason I come here. I come on here to talk to real people. If I can talk to one real person, I'd rather that than have a feed of 1,000 people who don't give a shit what I'm talking about. They're just on there because I'm famous, because that's not why I came here. That's not what my mission is. My mission is to reach one person. And if I can reach one person, then I can worry about reaching two people. You know, my mission wasn't to come here and get 1 million views so that I could make millions of dollars. You know, so well, the truth. I mean, that's a whole path I could spend a really long time talking to you about, because at one point those were things I wasn't sure if I believed or not compared to what I believe. So and my best friend is full on, Norse pagan, um Viking, got rune tattoos all over his body. Um so it's not really that far off. The things I could teach you related to your people and my people and our people and where we came from and how we actually got there, compared to a lot of the stories of how we got there. um I think after enough revealing, you might end up seeing the same way I do it, because at one point I believe very similar. There wasn't enough pieces that made sense until I started tearing apart as a Norse. As I started tearing it apart from the inside, I couldn't find enough actual answers. I couldn't find enough beginnings and ends to stories. I couldn't find complete stories. I couldn't find any complete actual history in any one set of places. So it led me to keep digging more for more truth. And after I searched 1,000 more years in the past before that, I found where all of our people came from. All the Nords, not all of them, but most of them are from the 13 tribes that escaped from the pharaohs out of Egypt. They were lost for thousands of years. And the reason the religions are so similar, Christianity to pagan Norseism, is because for the thousands of years that the Anglos marched north to the thousands of destinations they went, they lost their written religion and they had mythic stories. And if you think about how many of the mythic stories match up to the pieces of real stories of Christianity and the timelines, it actually really makes you think, and is very eye opening and very 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 truth taking. It it took a lot for me, because I wanted to believe a lot of that stuff. It sounds fun. It's very fairy tale esque. It's very neat the way it's woven. But unfortunately for me, as a super factual person, I couldn't get enough facts to pin it all together. I could only get little bits and pieces, and I couldn't pin the whole thing together to go, yes, I can prove this is here by all of this. Just wasn't enough of it. Mostly folklore and tales similar to the Native American Indian tribes across the North Americas. Similar stories, partial stories, stories together. But I don't blame anybody or knock anybody for what they believe. I feel that you should believe whatever you believe. You know, there's a map in the Sudan caves, which was from, like, I don't know, I want to say like the 5th century. I'd have to get out my other phone and dig through the information. And it's a map of all the tribes and all the different names of the tribes as they migrated across the Middle East and up north through Spain, Italy, north through Germany, the original Germania, and all that. Yeah, you know, a lot of people do, but you know, like I said, we all have the. That's the cool thing about life is see when God gave you the choice to believe what you want. He suggests that you believe him, but he gives you the right to believe whatever you want. He doesn't force you in any way. He doesn't sway you in any way. See, what the devil does is the devil spends his entire existence trying to get you not to believe in God. He doesn't ever try to convince you he exists. He just tries to convince you not to believe in God, sway you with sin, sway you with stories, sway you with lies. God very clearly in the Bible, and the Bible was written thousands of years before any Nordic history showed up, that he was the only God, and all other gods after him would be false gods. Even Muhammad didn't come. The Prophet Muhammad didn't come until 530 years after Christ was born and dead. So, and then he comes along and says he's the dude. The Mormons didn't make their religion until I don't know, the 1800s or something. So all these other things came along, and a lot of them came along out of lack of the original story. And that's why so many people, including very prominent dominant pagans in the 1000 to 1100, converted to Christianity once they had heard enough of the story, once they had heard enough of the pieces that co-aligned with what they thought they believed in similarity. So, like I said, feel, believe that, enjoy that. And if at any point you decide you don't believe that or enjoy that, or you're looking for some different answers, you can always look down the other path for the other answers. I'd never tell anybody how to be. I just tell them how I see it, how I believe it, what I've seen. I can't tell any man what they should or shouldn't believe. I feel like if you feel like you have the same peace and tranquility through your God that I have through my God, then all the power in the world to you. Yes, that's absolutely true. Um, there's a statue in France of one of the greatest Nords. The way they did the Vikings on TV, they screwed up the story. They put the two brothers like in the same time frame. They weren't in the same time frame, but Rollo did actually was actually a Viking who converted to Christianity and married the daughter of the King of France. So yeah, that's absolutely happened. Many leaders of tribes and throughout all of Scotland, um, became Christian and gave up Celtic tribal belief systems. It just it's the truth. Unfortunately, the people who don't believe it or don't like it is what it is. It was written well before anybody, 1,000 years before Christ came to life. The story about him was written, or not 1,000 years, but hundreds of years before he came to life. The story about him being crucified and sold out for silver, and all of that was already written. And then showed up a man who performed and did all these things that were written in the past. That didn't happen anywhere else in history. And nowhere else in history has anybody died from any religious group and ever even been claimed to come back to life. And not only did Jesus claim to come back to life, but 13 disciples died because of it. So it's up pretty powerful set of information. That's why a lot of people switched their beliefs to Christianity. I mean, there are Muslims that have switched to Christianity. You know, they read in their book indiscrepancies that actually point out our God is the Messiah in their book, and they read that and it's triggering. They change up. That's why their religion wants us all killed on confrontation, so that we don't have a chance to tell the truth. Because Muhammad was a liar and a pedophile, and he married a 6-year-old and then made a baby with her at 9. Yeah, so you know, there's weight to Christianity. It's one of the oldest religions in the world. It was in Ethiopia, Europe. The myth that Christians is kind of European religion is a total myth, because Christianity came from the Middle East and through Ethiopia long before it was ever in England or Europe. And that's what you need to be. As long as you're happy in what you believe and you feel all right and your life feels like it's going well, you don't need to do anything that someone else does. I tell people that all the time. If whatever you're doing is working for you and it makes you happy, you do that. If someday it doesn't feel like it's working for you and it's happy, you can always look down another path. Like I said, I just share what I know when people ask and when the subject comes up. And other than that, that's it. Thank you, Nate. I appreciate you coming in and having valid questions, and I appreciate you having your own opinion. You know, I don't need lapdogs. I don't want a room full of people who are like just chiming in saying, "Oh yeah, I'm 100 with you, dude. You're always right." Because I'm just a human being. I just have my opinion. I have to get up and put my pants on and tie my shoes one at a time. Like I said, I've been down the dark road. I've been so far from God that, I got tattoos that God probably definitely disapproves of. But it's part of the path that you live that makes you the person you become. So everything we do is part of who we are. That's not what defines you, but that's what helped make you. That's what helped learn you. That's what helped build you in the background. It never has to define us. If there's anything we've ever done and we don't like it or we're unhappy with it, that doesn't define us. We could change from that moment. So, well, good. There's a lot of Nord history, and there's a lot of Nordic stories, and a lot of them coincide. But like I said, the only unfortunate thing is there's just no one woven thing where you can literally read like it top to bottom, and really get like a full comprehensive thing of it. You kind of have to learn the bits and pieces of it. Whereas the if you're Christian, you got the whole entire thing. You can kind of lay it out for you, and even a lot of it in the Newer Testament relates to the world we live in today. So I think you just have a little more work, like when you're trying to find the information you're probably looking for, you just have to like a little more work because most of the sagas are like locked up. You know, I think if I remember right, I think it's in Sweden or Norway, one of the two. All the sagas are locked up in like in an archive somewhere. So a lot of the stories that would piece together the things that are missing, like from Snorri's book, from Snorri Sturluson, like from his book and some of the other writings in the 11th century, there's a lot of it pieced together, but there's a lot missing. And I think that's because all the chronicles are locked up. I think it's in Norway. I'm pretty sure it's in Norway. But they didn't find out half of what they know about the Vikings and a lot of the raids and stuff until they found records in Irish monasteries. They used to build those crazy towers, and there'd be a guy that lived in there and wrote in the books, and the next guy would live in there and write in the books, and they kept it historically, and they didn't burn down when everything was raided. So a lot of really good history is saved in there, where like the people were killed and who did it and which groups came down and did it. So there's quite a bit of stuff that can be unearthed, you know. I'm pretty sure in both of those places they have like camps where you can literally go and like live. I'm pretty sure both Sweden and in Norway. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure both of them do, where you can go and live in like villages the way they lived and like learn, the traditions. Like as a visitor, like I'm pretty sure of that because um I've seen some videos of stuff like that where they literally have the dress, like nobody's dressed modern, nobody's using modern silverware. They got the old dishes and the houses with the thatched roofs, and they go out on the boats and all that shit. So you could probably get yourself a passport and go check that shit out. And you can get a lot more accurate information about stuff like that if you're in the land where it comes from. Like in America, you can get shit tons of Christian history because this country was founded on Christians. So if you go to a country where there were Nords, where there's actually Nords, like people who were actually from the descendants, not just people who just DNA'd 1,000 years later, you could get a lot of the truth you're looking for, and they could probably tell you, good, more accurate and realistic stories to what you're wanting to know. Because you won't get that here. Here, all you're going to get is a English modern Google version of bullshit, or the Netflix Vikings where they got the 40-year apart brothers fighting at the same time. Yeah, anytime you're submerged in some kind of nature project or nature activity where you're connected with the earth and the way mankind lived before all the modern bullshit is a life-changing experience. I've spent most of my life living in the mountains. So lived in the cities, for 20 years or so, 30 years here and there, but spent the better part of my life living in the mountains away from people, trying to have like that nature and that earth life around me seems to bring more peace. So, but I appreciate you, Nate. I'm gonna get out of here. Been on here for like an hour. Looks like you and I are the only people here. Yeah, a small town close to the woods is better than the big city. As long as you can go escape. I tell people all the time, as long as you just go put your feet in nature. Go walk amongst the trees. Breathe that air, you know. People get so upset, so uptight, playing with their electronics, you know. They forget to live. Life's short. You got to go outside. You got to care about the people you care about and not care about the people that are bothering you, because all they're doing is burning up your energy. Change the things you can change, and you don't worry about the things that you can't change. That's what you got to remember. Absolutely. We will see you next time, bro. And for everyone out there, I'm the Revradchad. I'm just saying, and God loves you. Peace.